Okay, so I thought I'd make a video about my path towards the CCNA certification. At the moment I'm in the process of getting the certificate, so I thought in this video I'd do a little bit about what the CCNA is, what I know of it, my reasons for doing it, sort of materials that I would use to do it and to obtain the CCNA, which is a certification, and then what sort of strategies I would use to learn and to get to a point where I could take the CCNA. I'm using these strategies at the moment. I haven't quite passed my CCNA yet, but these are the strategies that I'm using. And then finally I'll finish off with where to, after I've passed the certificate, where's this going to lead me? Where am I going to go with a CCNA? Okay, I've got a certificate that says I have a CCNA and I can do networking. Where does it then take me? Where do I go then? So I thought I'd cover a few things. So the first thing I'm going to cover is what is the CCNA. Now the CCNA is a certification. In fact, it says here, achieving CCNA certification is the first step in preparing for a career in IT technologies. So it's sort of like the introductory, it's become the introductory course for networking with routing and switching. There was sort of before the revamp earlier this year, there was a sort of an earlier version, a lower level version that kind of led you into, I think it was CCND, which kind of got you ready. It was like an entry-level certificate, which then ultimately led you to CCNA. And they've sort of integrated that all into one now. Now CCNA is the standard and is pretty much the first thing you go into. And it's like the default if you want to go into anything networking. And then from the CCNA you can broaden it into a specific area, depending on where your career is going to take you. So CCNA gives you the foundation you need to take your career in any direction. So it's been changed a lot, and now the exam is it's less practical based and is more kind of knowledge based, facts knowledge in that sense. So it's, what do you know about this? This is a scenario. What would you do? What command would you do if X, Y, and Z? So it's problem solving, it's troubleshooting, and it's remembering facts. There are quite a few people online that say that they don't like it, but because of what they've known before. I actually personally do like it, but I can see why people don't like it without the practical side. Now, I would say to pass a CCNA, you're going to have practical experience and knowledge anyway, and you're basically expected to have had some sort of experience in the career already in that sort of sector. So CCNA stands for Cisco Certified Network Associate, and then you do have CCIE and CCNP. They are higher level certificates which kind of go into a specific area, but I'm just focusing on the CCNA, which is kind of my entry level certificate. Now I have recently passed the CompTIA A+ certificate, which is, again, it's entry level. It's entry level for an IT technician, someone that's doing IT support. So it covers a lot of stuff over a very, very shallow, at a very, very shallow depth. So that's that. And I've had to renew that certificate. I don't think I'll renew it again. I think it's due to renew again in November 2023. I don't think I'm going to bother renewing it. I think at that point I should be on to something else. Hopefully I've got the CCNA by then, and maybe something else after that. So that's it. Now, my reasons for doing it, well, basically, I better show CompTIA actually. So there's CompTIA. CompTIA is more of a broader, gender neutral certificate agency, sort of a company that will deliver qualifications in IT, but not for a specific company. So Cisco is, the CCNA is specifically for Cisco products, so Cisco routers, Cisco switches. But I've noticed that the new CCNA, they do tend to kind of be more generalised, and they do sort of touch on other pieces of equipment, other companies, not just Cisco anymore. So it seems to be a bit more broader. Now there is the Network Plus, which is also a CompTIA certification, which is in some way quite similar to CCNA, particularly this new CCNA. But again, it's gender neutral, so they'll talk about things in a generalised view, but it does go into some detail. It does touch on wireless and a few other things. So it does have its merits, and I can see why people would go through the Network Plus. I personally would go through CCNA, but I think where we're at the moment, you could go with Network Plus or CCNA, and it's going to stand you in good stead. And then you can go into a specific area like Security Plus, which again, these two, Network Plus and Security Plus, they tend to go hand in hand. I actually did the course book for Network Plus, never took the exam. I went straight into CCNA, and I'm thinking maybe I shouldn't have done that. But to be fair, I learned a lot of skills in that Network Plus that could put me in good stead for CCNA. So a lot of what I'm doing in CCNA is pretty straightforward. So my reasons for doing it is that I needed to change profession. I was working in a teaching environment. I was a teacher, and I kept finding myself in a position where I was working with IT. I kept being the person that was working with IT, and I really enjoyed it, to the point where I enjoyed it more than working with, and teaching children. And if any teachers are watching, they'll know. If that's the case, then it's time to get out. If your heart's not in it, you've got to get out, because that sort of job will kill you. So I took the opportunity. I was taken by a company, and I do IT support for that company, and I do that within a school, so I've still got that school experience. If you have a passion for it, you're naturally going to find a way into it. Eventually, you will find a way into IT. If you want to work in IT, you will work in IT. You've just got to have a passion for it. Even if it's just being at home playing with some tech, it gets you kind of in the mood. And the more you do, the more you learn. Offer yourself to other companies. Offer yourself for free. Offer to do certain work. Obviously, don't go over the top, but try and get as much experience as you possibly can. Okay, and you've got to be a sponge. You've got to take in as much information as you can, and take the opportunity whenever you can to go in somewhere or see something or see someone. I find that if you shadow someone that knows more than you, that's your best possible move, especially in the lower, when you're just kind of starting out. Also, money. I mean, it's got to be said that there are jobs that will pay well in this. So if I go to Indeed and I do a little search, sysadmin, as you can see, we're in the sort of mid, 40 to 60,000. But these are very specific jobs, which are beyond the scope of CCNA. But they would ultimately, if you'd have to do the CCNA before you sort of went into this sort of thing. So yeah, that's that. There are the jobs. So for basically, I would say to do it is to better you, to better your life, and to better your life for your family. If you can earn more money and have that better work-life balance, then it's for you. And if you're happy in your job, you're going to be happy in life. You're going to be happy at home. I personally find learning is fun, and I really enjoy learning new things. And I think we should always be learning new things. Doesn't matter how old you are. I mean, I'm in my 30s, but I don't feel like I should be learning any less. So as this quote on the screen now, it shows you, the more that you read, the more things that you will know. The more that you learn, the more places you go. So that's a Dr. Seuss reference there, and I think that's quite pertinent to learning whatever age you are. And especially in a new section like IT. To be fair, you're going to pick up things anyway in IT. So if you've got that passion for it, you're going to go into it. So the materials that I used a lot of YouTube videos. I use a lot of books, and I use Google, which is sort of the main thing, the main resource. I use, for practical experience, Packet Tracer and Boson NetSim, and I actually have actual equipment. These are actually Cisco routers and switches that I will play with, and it's not really required to do a CCNA. You can get your CCNA without actually having any equipment, but it's optional, and if you can have it, there's nothing better than having a piece of equipment in front of you with power pushing out noise and heat, and something you can plug into. Strategies that I've used. Oh, actually, I'll talk about the materials. So YouTube videos, Network Chuck is one of them. Keith Barker, Jeremy IT Labs, Eli, the computer guy I use sometimes. He's not that good anymore. He tends to go into a weird territory. But some of his early videos were really helpful for me at the beginning. Crosstalk Solutions, which I find fascinating because he's doing it on the job. He's showing his work for real clients. Keeping IT Simple, which they always post videos, and they're really, really useful, and they're very, very specific, but they're really, really helpful, and they put it out in a nice, clear, easy to understand way. Power Cert Animated is another one, which again is really clear, really concise, and really, really useful. Some of it maybe not as useful, and some of it is quite basic, but it will get you in good stead for something a bit higher. Computer File I watch just because they have interesting little videos, like on DNS or whatever. And Cert Bros, which is again a bit of a specific one on not just CCNA but other certificates. So the materials I use the CCNA textbooks. I use volume 1 and 2. I'll put a picture on the video to show you that. And I also use other things like the Network Plus books. I use other books in conjunction with that, but the more you can have the better, I think. But what I would suggest you do is you find one that suits you. Find a book that is going to be for you, that has the right sort of wording in it, and the right level of kind of little mini quizzes and that sort of thing. It's always good to have a mini quiz at the end of every chapter. Google, I still go into Google, and I'm always going back in there to find out something, because it's a very quick way to do it. And from what I gather, in a job in IT, no matter what level you're working at, you're always going to go back to Google to find something. I've learned pretty quickly that you're not expected to know everything, but you're expected to know how to know everything. So Google is part of the way to that. Packet Tracer, as I say, is brilliant. It's free. And it will allow you to create a virtual network, so switches and routers and computers, and link them all up with little wires on the screen, and then you can get them to talk to each other, and it simulates it, and it's fantastic. For CCNA level, it's perfect. It does have its little nuances, but more or less it's worked great for me. And if you can find some really good tutorials alongside it, you can put those in and load up a lab and have a good play around, and that's what it's about. I think Packet Tracer is all about having a play around and getting to know how the switches work and experimenting. So strategies that I use at the moment, I aim to set aside about 30 minutes every day. If I do more than 30 minutes, great, but 30 minutes is how much I want to spend doing some work. Now, you can't get a great deal done in that time, and sometimes I'll go over 30 minutes. A lot of the times I do, but I'll make it a point that I will do 30 minutes. I tend to try and do it in the same time in the same place each day, because I'm a creature of habit, and I like to know this is my place where I do my work, this is where I do my studying, and it's in my head. It helps me get my head into the right place. You make sure it's quiet. Now, I've got 2 small children and they're quite noisy, but you've got to find a place that's quiet. If it means finding a place when they're not in the house, you just don't want distractions, because it doesn't help and you won't take it in. So I write down a lot of notes in my textbooks, and I do lots and lots of quizzes. I use lots of different materials in a complementary way. So I'll use the videos, watch some videos on a topic, then I'll read a chapter or 2 about that topic, and then I'll do the practicals, and I'll practice, and then practice a bit more, until it's locked in there. And sometimes that answers a lot of the other questions I have, or if I thought I knew something and then actually no, that wasn't right. And sometimes it's picked up on when I do the practice. And then you put your practice, what you know and what you've learnt, into the real world. So in my job, I do have experience in some networking capacity, and I do have the opportunity to work with routers and switches. And when I get the chance, I will go in there and try and use what I've learnt. Using that actual networking equipment is the best thing if you can do it. I'm not recommending it if you haven't got the space, or if a budget is an issue. But switches and routers, the older ones, the old Cisco ones, which are still good for CCNA level practice, really aren't that much. On eBay, you're looking about £10-20 each. If you look in the right places, and they're perfectly fine. They might be a bit noisy, they might be a bit run down, but Cisco devices they'll just keep on going for another 1,000 years, So they're the strategies I used. And then where to after I pass. So really, where to after I pass my CCNA, it does depend on what job I want. A CCNA is just a basic routing and switching certificate, so it just gets your foot in the door. It gives you that ability to show a potential employer that you can do these things. That's what a certificate's about, really. That's all it's for. It's your core skills. But from there are so many different ways you can go. Python programming, cloud computing, AWS, Azure, security firewalls, etc. Wireless is as a whole section itself. You could spend like 10 years just working with wireless. Linux is another one, which a lot of these things kind of go hand in hand. So you'd probably need to know a bit of all of these. And really applying for jobs that look for those specific skills is where the scope for further skills should be learned. So if I want to learn about if I want to work with wireless, I'm going to have to learn about wireless. So I'm looking for jobs that are going to have that opportunity. It might be that the job itself doesn't actually talk about wireless, but you know that that's an area that you could go into. If there's scope for further skills to be learned in that certain role or in that company, then that's something to look forward to. Try not to stay in one place. Try not to just stay in one job for another 5-10 years. I mean, I always think it's a good idea to keep moving, keep learning. Once you've got something locked down and it's becoming a bit monotonous, that's the time to move. It's time to go. As soon as you're doing the same thing day in, day out, I think it's time to step it up a gear and earn more money. The best thing to do is to set a date for the exam. So book the exam, focus the mind, get yourself focused on that particular date, and have fun. I think the important thing here is that life is too short. Don't feel stuck down in just one job type. So I was working in teaching, and I could have just carried on doing that for the rest of my working life. But I thought, do you know what? Life's too short, and if I'm not enjoying my job, why do I want to still work there? So many people still work in jobs that they hate. I'm not saying that I hated the job, but I wasn't enjoying it. And if you're not enjoying it, why carry on doing it? You should enjoy your work. I think everyone should enjoy their work. Doesn't matter what they're doing. And I think that you should be working to live, not living to work. So that's my mantra. So I would say, if you're happy in your job, you're going to be happy in your life in general. You're going to be happy at home. So that's all I've really got to say about that, and I'll leave it there. See you next time.